Thank you very much for joining our call where we're going to talk about some changes that are happening with the personal outcome measures. My name is Kathy Yadimick, and I'm the Director of Training and Certification here at CQL. We had quite a few people sign up for this, so we know you're very interested. We will be sending all of the registrants an email link to the PowerPoint and to the recording of today's session. So that will be made available to you at the end of, at some point in the next couple of weeks. The other thing I want you to know is that there is a question box, and you can certainly submit questions for answers throughout the presentation. The presentation is designed to be fairly short, with an opportunity for questions at the end. And then if we are not able to get through all of the questions, we will respond to the questions and include those on our website for you. All right, so thank you very much for joining us, and we're getting ready to start our presentation. So welcome. So, all things in life, change. Some people love change and some people don't quite love it. So, thinking about spring and we're changing. And so it's a good time to just think about how to refresh and rejuvenate and keep moving forward with the personal outcome measures. So many of you that are on this call, I recognize your names as people who have, who are accredited by CQL, people who are certified as trainers and interviewers, or just people who have had a long-term commitment to CQL and to the work that we do here. So, and you recognize and you know that CQL is a data-driven organization. So in looking at the personal outcome measures, since we rolled those out in 1993, we have collected data from over 10,000 interviews. And so we've looked at that data and we've done some work on it. And as part of the work that we've done, we've looked at how do the personal outcome measures fit together. And so we did a revalidation of it and looked at it. And as we looked at it, what we found is based on this advanced statistical analysis that the personal outcome measures clustered themselves in different factors. And so in the clustering of those different factors, what we thought we needed to do is to look at, is there a way that that works naturally? So we've organized the personal outcome measures, the 21 same personal outcome measures, into 5 different factor areas. And those 5 factor areas are my human security, my community, my relationships, my choices, and my goals. One of the exciting things for many of us who work with the personal outcome measures is not only does this make sense from a data point of view, it also makes sense to us from the way that we have conversations with people, the way that we think and gather information. And so hopefully as you're looking through this, you'll see some of those same kinds of things. So the first factor is my human security. And my human security really is about all of those things that are essential and non-negotiable, and they're about our human and our civil rights. And this includes, of course, a wide range of rights, from the right to access one's possessions, to the right to privacy, to having, to being free from abuse and mistreatment, and then also with just being treated with respect and dignity, and having then the economic resources to do this work. Those of you that work with personal outcome measures on a regular basis can probably think, I wonder what personal outcome measures might be in this category. And you might guess, it might be about people are safe, and you'd be right. People are free from abuse and neglect. People have the best possible health. People experience continuity and security. People exercise rights. People are treated fairly. And people are respected. So this is the largest, this is where most of the outcomes fall. There are 7 outcomes that fall in my human security. And again, these are about those essential, non-negotiable, basic human rights. The next category, the next factor is my community. And my community really is about people having the right to be in the community, to exercise that right, to interact with other people. And it really helps us to bring forth, in the United States at least, the way that we work in terms of the ADA, the lawsuit that was filed in 1999, and Olmstead in 1999, about making sure that people are receiving services in the most integrated settings possible, and that we, want to make sure that people have a difference between being present in the community, being integrated in the community, and being included in the community. That those 3 things are vitally important. And while the characteristics of community may differ from person to person, all people who receive services through any funded program should be supported to fulfill meaningful and valued roles in their community. So again, you might be thinking, oh, I can guess some of the outcomes that might be in here. And there are 4 outcomes in this area. People use their environments. And so some people might be thinking, well, that's about people using their appliances at home. And that's about, but it's also about people being present in their home, outside of their home, with interacting with neighbors. It's also about having access to transportation. And so it fits very well in this category in that way. People live in integrated environments. Is another important outcome in this area. People interacting with other members of the community and people participating in community life. The next factor is my relationships. And relationships are really important. Community helps to build relationships, but relationships also build community, so they're very interrelated. And relationships are important because it's about that familiarity. It's about belonging and intimacy. And it might be with connections with your biological family or people that you've chosen to be a part of your family, people that you've chosen to be friends or even romantic partners, that really produce this real sense of belonging. And they're personally defined from people that we choose to share information with to really being a very deep sense of intimacy. And these relationships, like I said, create that link to the greater world and help us build social capital that help us get the other things that we want in our life. So people are connected to natural supports. People have friends. People have intimate relationships. People decide when to share personal information, are all here. And when we think about people sharing personal information, thinking about who do we trust to share those things with, most of the time, unless you're a frequent traveler and sit on airplanes, sometimes you manage to sit next to somebody who will tell you their whole life story. But for the most part, when we meet people for the first time, we don't hear all of the things that have happened in their life, or they're the ones that are controlling what they hear. But when people are receiving services, their information is decided, who gets that information is sometimes decided for them. So it's really about trust. And then, of course, people performing different social roles, because again, that's about that social capital, that connection to community. My choice, and this is about people choosing what choices people make in their lives, that about their community, about what they do. And central to all of these is about self-determination, autonomy, and participation. And it's about organizations listening and helping and support people to live the life that they choose. So when we think about my choices, there are only three outcomes here. The first one is choose where and with whom to live. People choose where they work, and people choose services. So those fit nicely in this particular outcome. Then we also have my goals, which is the fifth factor. So the fifth factor is my goals, and it's really about what the person's aim is for now and for the future going forward. What is it that's important to my life that has me, that helps me to have what I want now and in the future? And so there are two outcomes here, and you might have guessed, people choose personal goals and people realize personal goals. So again, thinking about how people celebrate those milestones and actually accomplish and live the life they choose. Okay, so when we look at these 5 factors together, so we have the 5 factors of my human security, my community, my relationships, my choices, and my goals. And when we listen and talk to people and we learn about what's important to them in each of those factor areas, that helps us to focus on the person so that we can help to support the person or know what the person wants so that they can get the things that they want in their life. And so we're looking at these 5 factors that create that person's vision of what they want what their life is and what they want their life to look at. And then we can use these same outcomes, the information from these 5 factors to guide our person-centered planning and our thinking about people, because it really focuses on what's important to the person and what really matters. So here's just a one-page list of the outcomes, the factors, and which of the outcomes fall under them. So it's a very quick reference for you to have that. Then, so that's kind of the discussion about how we have reorganized the different personal outcome measures into the 5 factor areas. So the same 21 outcomes are just reorganized based on our validation in a different way that we think makes sense, not only from a data point of view, but in a practical point of view in terms of how you do interviews, how you have the conversations with people, and how you then help to identify what's really important and what are the person's themes. The next part of the presentation is to talk about how we are aligning the decision-making questions in the manual with the decision-making questions in the database. Now, some of you that are on this call have not done a lot of work in our database. We hope that changes in time to come because we've really worked hard to make the database responsive to what you've told us that would be important to you. But you might have noticed, if you did, that sometimes in the manual we had open-ended questions. So one of the questions in the manual might be, what kind of contact does the person have with people in their natural support network? Well, in the database, of course, we need yes/no questions. So it really isn't about how, although that we have to know that in order to make the decisions about does the person have the kind of contact that they want, but it's more yes/no questions. In the manual, it frequently talks about the type and frequency in the same question. So it'll say things like, is the person satisfied with the type and frequency that they go into the community, that in terms of being involved in the community, of the life of the community? Well, in the database, those questions are frequently separated, so we can talk about whether it's the type, what the person's doing, or whether it's the frequency at what they're doing them. And that is designed to help the supporting agencies know more carefully or more clearly what it is that the person is dissatisfied with. Sometimes they're only dissatisfied with the number of times, but they are satisfied with what they're doing. Other times they're satisfied with both what they do and how often, and sometimes people aren't satisfied with what they get to do and how often they are doing those things. In the manual, it's more global or general, so we ask questions like what rights are important to the person, whereas in the database, we have a specific list of rights that are examples, and then add in, of course, any other rights that are important to the person. In the decision-making, in the manual, in the decision-making questions, the additional considerations are separate from the decision-making questions. In our database, sometimes we included those as data points that would help us to look at how things are going for people and what could change. The manual really doesn't ask you a lot of questions about demographics, where in the database, we've collected a lot of information about demographics. In the demographics, what that's allowed us to do is to look at the differences in the number of outcomes and supports in place for people in different service types. It's allowed us to look at, in an upcoming issue of the capstone for Autism Awareness Month, you'll be able to see how the outcomes, how people with autism are doing in terms of having outcomes and supports in their life. In the manual, it was a simple yes or no. Supports are present, they're not present. In the database, there was a yes, supports are in place. No, supports aren't in place, but there's a plan. And in others, there's not, supports aren't in place, but there's an awareness. And sometimes then it was, there's just nothing happening, and the agencies weren't aware. So the supports were on a scale. So what we've done with this is looking at all this data from all of these things. We've looked at, we've tweaked, we've thought about, what's the best way, what are the best questions to get at the data, and helping to get to the questions that we want to get to. And so this is, again, just a summary of what we've done. After we've shifted the order of the 21 outcome measures, then we kept the interview process exactly the same. You have conversations with the people. For some people who started at the beginning of the outcomes and went through, this may change it a bit. For other people where we grouped relationship questions together, it really helps it to flow better for us. We have preserved the intent of the outcomes. And aside from people are connected to natural support networks, the decision-making questions are similar to what they were before. Okay. And we did this because we wanted some consistency we wanted more consistency between the database and between the personal outcome measure manual. So that consistency is why we did that, and also because we think it provides more clarity when you're making decisions, and clarity is always a good thing. So in looking at why we did this, it's to make things more consistent and to look at making it clearer to everyone. So what does this mean for you? So some of you are thinking, I just went through this. Well, your current manuals may be dated, but they're not outdated. You can keep those. We've talked about the changes in the reorganization today. So, you might, do some things to your book. You might renumber them. You might move pages and put them into a binder. You might do all kinds of different things to make that work for you. Then you're going to be able to learn more about the portal, which is our new data system, in a webinar on the 24th. And you'll be able to learn more about those changes that I talked about in the decision-making questions on May the 9th, when we provide some information about what the changes are and how that affects, and again, aside from natural support networks, they have not changed significantly. Okay, and so then what's next for us? And so we, you, me, everyone at CQL, everyone on this call, everyone who partners with CQL will continue on our journey together to improve the quality of life for people. The new database is ready and will begin on May the 1st. The personal outcome measure manual is in the final stages of editing. And we will make it available electronically to agencies who are accredited, or we'll make portions of it available electronically to agencies who are accredited or who have certified interviewers or trainers. So you'll be able to print those off and make changes in your book or use them with your book. And then we're working now to revise all of the personal outcome measure learning materials and make the changes in the assessment workshop and what we do when we do reliability in terms of the order of those very soon.